Good morning. One more time. Good morning. My name is Tim Atkins, and I serve as your Director of Lifespan Religious Exploration. I am wearing a what color is this? Purplish shirt and some big bunny ears today. Welcome to the First Unitarian Church, where our mission is to explore the eternal, nurture community, and pursue the common good. We welcome you in your brokenness and in your wholeness. No matter who you have been, who you are, or whom you are becoming, we greet you today with love. I'd like to extend a special welcome to everyone who is watching us on YouTube this morning. During the prelude, please introduce yourself in the comments and let us know where you're joining from. If you're in Oklahoma City, what neighborhood, or if elsewhere, what city you're in. Now, as my head attire might point out today, we have a special Easter egg hunt after the worship service. All ages are invited to join out on the lawn. You want to head out the back, where we will have a special area for toddlers and a larger area for our elementary school youth. And a big thanks to our middle and high school youth for organizing and running the Easter egg hunt this morning. And now the prelude prepares us for worship.
Good morning. We light our chalice here in our building in Midtown, Oklahoma City, on land that was home to indigenous peoples, including the Apache, Caddo, and Wichita, on land that was taken from the Creek and Seminole and other removed and relocated peoples. We light the chalice as a symbol of our sacred time together. The burning chalice represents the light of reason and science, the warmth of loving community, the cleansing heat of justice, and the flame of hope.
Hi, my name's Susan Biles, and for those who haven't met me very much, I'm a 47-year member of this church. I'm very proud of that. We have a call to worship this morning given by a short little woman with gray hair and in a purple and black geometric print dress. My pronouns are pretty much she and her. And we have a call to worship this morning by UU minister Irvin Carvel Zemer. Our souls speak spring. If we lived in another climate, our souls might speak other languages. We might speak oasis or permafrost, dry season or monsoon. But our souls speak spring. Our souls speak green shoots pushing through last year's leaves. Our souls speak flower beds, buds stretching to the sun. Our souls speak mud puddles and nest building and damp earth and worm castings and tiny green leaves and frog choruses. We speak spring because spring sings in us. We gather to nurture our faith in our own growing, our own courage to push through, our own blossoming into beauty, our own small part in the spring of this world. Come, let us worship together.
And Ingrid, would you come to do our call to offering?
Good morning. My name is Ingrid Young. I'm past president of the congregation, and this year I'm heading up a very good group working on our auction. I'd like to remind you that the online auction will begin next Saturday and continue for a week, capped off by a party here at church, April 30th at 6. And I'd like to ask everyone who can to participate. Every Sunday, we take an offering. Since 2002, all the cash and designated checks from that offering go directly to external nonprofit organizations doing good work, our Change for Change partners. For the month of April, our Change for Change partner is Teen Empower Inc. Their mission is to empower, educate, and motivate adolescents to make informed decisions for their sexual health. The funds collected will go specifically to their Stop the Stigma program. This program supports the emotional well-being of those who are HIV positive, plus it supports prevention efforts. Federal funds will not cover this program. If you're in the sanctuary today, please leave your offering in the offering plates by the doors when you leave. Beginning next week, we'll be passing the plates during the service again. And if you're watching us online, please make your gift by sending a check to First Unitarian. Just write "change for change" on the memo line, or make an online payment through our website, the number 1UC.org. Thank you.
Once, there was a little boy who got a stuffed rabbit for one of his Christmas presents. It was a pretty amazing rabbit, all soft and fluffy with shiny black eyes. And when he first saw it sitting under the Christmas tree, the boy took it up in his arms and he gave it a big hug. But then he caught sight of his other presents. There was a galactic snack in Grogu, and a Hogwarts castle, and a bunch of other really amazing things. And he quickly forgot about the plain old stuffed bunny. At the end of the day, the boy's parents gathered up all the gifts and put them in his bedroom, where a bunch of them ended up under his bed. That's where the bunny found himself, along with an old toy horse that didn't do anything but just look like a horse. And a bunch of robotic toys that would zip around thinking they were real cars or dinosaurs or robots until their batteries died. And then it got very quiet. And it was just the stuffed rabbit and the toy horse. And the toy horse had probably been really pretty once, but she'd been played with so much that her mane had mostly been pulled out, and she hardly had any tail left. Day after day, the rabbit and the horse would sit under the boy's bed and have deep conversations. And it seemed like whatever question the rabbit asked, the horse would have a wise answer that really made the rabbit think, because the horse was so old and had seen so much in life. And one day the rabbit asked, "What is real? Is it having a battery that lets you move around?" And the horse answered, "Real isn't how you are made. It's a thing that happens to you. When a child loves you for a long, long time, not just to play with, but really loves you, then you become real." "Does it hurt?" asked the rabbit. "Sometimes," said the horse, who was always very honest. "Does it happen all at once?" asked the rabbit, "or bit by bit?" "Well, it doesn't happen all at once," said the horse. "You become. It takes a long time, and that's why it doesn't happen often to people who break easily, or have sharp edges, or who have to be carefully kept. Generally, by the time you are real, most of your hair has been loved off, and your eyes drop out, and you get loose in the joints and very shabby. But these things don't matter at all, because once you are real, you can't be ugly, except to people who don't understand. "I suppose you are real," said the rabbit, and then he wished he hadn't said it, because he thought the horse might be sensitive. But the horse only smiled. "The boy's mother made me real," she said. "That was a long time ago. But once you are real, you can never become unreal again. It lasts for always." And the rabbit sighed. And not much happened for a long time after that, until one day when the boy had a babysitter who was trying to get the boy to go to sleep, but he really didn't want to go to sleep. Well, she reached under the bed and she grabbed the first toy she found and she put it in his arms and said, "There, now go to sleep." And it just so happened that the toy she grabbed was the rabbit. And it just so happened that the boy was actually pretty sleepy, so he hugged the rabbit and he quickly fell asleep. And it just so happened that the rabbit was happy to be hugged. And he whispered nice words to the boy as he slept, like, "I'm happy to be your friend." After that, for many, many more nights, the boy held the rabbit as he slept. And sometimes the boy would make little burrows for him under the blankets and say, "That's like where real rabbits live." And then he started carrying the rabbit around with him everywhere he went, all through the house and out in the yard. And often he'd drag the rabbit, so the rabbit got pretty dirty. And from hugging him so much, the rabbit's ears became kind of raggedy, and his nose was mostly rubbed off, and one eye was a little loose. But the rabbit didn't even notice because he was happy. One day, the boy was having a fight with his big sister, and the sister got so angry that she grabbed the rabbit away from him. And the boy said, "Give that back to me." And his sister said, "Why? It's just a stupid old toy." And the boy said, "Is not. Rabbit is real." And deep inside, Rabbit smiled and smiled, and his little sawdust heart almost burst. Now he understood what the horse had been talking about. He wasn't just a toy anymore. He was real. The boy had said so himself. Well, time passed and the boy grew up, and one day Rabbit found himself sitting outside on the curb with a bunch of other old toys and broken furniture on the day before bulky trash day. And Rabbit was very sad and lonely, and he thought back to the old days and how happy they were. He remembered all that the wise horse had told him, and he wondered, of what use is it to be loved and lose your beauty and become real if it all ends up like this? And yet, not for 1 second would he change anything, because he had loved someone with all of his sawdust heart. And a real tear rolled down his shabby little cheek and fell to the ground. And then something wonderful happened. In the spot where the tear fell, a flower suddenly grew. And when the bud opened, out popped a very tiny, very beautiful fairy. And she said to Rabbit, "Don't cry. I've come to make you real." And Rabbit said, "But wasn't I real before?" And the fairy answered, "You were real to the boy because he loved you. But because you have loved, you are now real to yourself. And once you're real to yourself, you can be real for everyone else." And just then, Rabbit felt something tickle his nose, and he scratched it with one of his hind legs. He had hind legs! He jumped for joy, and he wagged his cotton tail. And there was a rustling noise in the bushes as some other real rabbits emerged to welcome him and to teach him the ways of Rabbitland. The fairy kissed him on the head and said, "Run and play, little rabbit." And he did. The end.
Oh, hi again. I'm Steve Goldman, a cisgender male, short, rotund person with a rotund face, gray hair, and a gray beard, trying to look as rabbinical and rotund for this holiday. wearing a light green shirt, brown V-neck sweater. The rotundness fits the story of Passover, my memories of family and food, of food and faith, of food and stories, which create the Passover meal together. To me, one of the commonalities of all three spring holidays, Passover, Easter, Ramadan, is a focus on food and children and family. The Jewish holiday of Passover includes a ceremonial meal called a Seder. Seder is a religious service done at home around your own dining room table with extended family and friends. When I was a child, the Seder was always the wonderful opportunity to put on a play, since the Seder script has parts for everyone, from the elders down to the youngest. And what better way to pass along the story of a people than to perform it with family and have the starring roles for the youngest ones who ask the crucial 4 questions in a Seder, which must be answered by an elder who can't just say, "Don't bother me, kid." Did I mention food earlier? How could a religion make their stories even more memorable? Because remember, this was an early era in Judaism, long before Steven Spielberg or Stephen Sondheim, or the CinemaScope spectacular of the 10 Commandments. So what would make the origin story of a faith even more palatable for all ages? I think in order to better put the story into the minds and hearts of the people, it's best to get all 5 senses involved. So there's plenty of hearing and seeing words, but the Passover Seder also includes the taste of bitter herbs for the harshness of slavery, salt water for tears. There's the smell of sweet fruits for liberation, and the touch of a smooth, cool lamb shank. Plus the texture of sharp-edged, crumbly matzah, symbolic of when Jews were on the move, moving into the unknown, with no time for bread, the staff of life, to rise and bake. So there was matzah. And at the end of the Seder, the children hunt for a square of matzah hidden somewhere in the house. And to me, that's the heartwarming image of how a faith encourages searching. Rambunctious children on a guided hunt, with the elders suggesting different paths to the promised land. Well, at least the symbolic promised matzah and presents. So for all of you today, look for the hidden matzah under your pew. I'm just kidding, but there will be matzahs to taste and enjoy at the end of the service outside. Did I mention food? Now for a dessert course of theology. Today's service sets Passover in a theme of redemption. To me, this sense of redemption is not because someone themselves has original sin, not because someone has sinned so much that they need redeeming, not that an individual is bad or lost and must get religion to be saved. Instead, I favor some of the recent biblical text analysis that translates from redemption into restoration, to restore balance, to restore freedom to think and to act faithfully. Even the ultra-conservative Shabbat rabbis talk about redemption as more like liberation, redemption from limitations imposed on you by others, or removing limitations that people impose on themselves. And that's an ongoing process for all of us that leads to improvement in our conduct, better actions in the real world of today, not some idealized afterlife. As a kid, I sure didn't have the vocabulary, but now I'd say that my family's Judaism valued orthopraxis just a bit more than orthodox thinking. In other words, It's not just enough to believe the right things. You must also live and do and act the right things. In our own time frame, in our own lives, in order to leave the confines of your personal Egypt, an individual must break out of personal narrowness, becoming free to achieve full spiritual potential. The UU principles and this welcoming church fit well with my Jewish upbringing, so I'm proud to be a Junitarian. There's enough of us that that's an official word in the UU website. But at most, grateful to my spouse, Susan Biles, for introducing me to this faith and this church. The words Susan spoke earlier resonate well for Passover, Easter, and Ramadan, the spring holidays when we gather to nurture our own faith and our own upbringing and our own growing and our own courage in this springtime of stormy weather and unsettled society. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Well, the next song that the choir will sing is technically about the event that is celebrated at Passover each year, the release of the Israelites from their bondage in Egypt. It has another very important layer of meaning. If you look in your hymnal at number 104, you'll see that the song tune, always in the lower right-hand corner, it has a song tune, and it's called Tubman. And this is in honor of Harriet Tubman, the great Underground Railroad conductor. The song was created by enslaved Black people in the South who found a parallel to their own experience in the story of the Israelites. When Harriet Tubman was on her freedom missions, courageously leading enslaved people to freedom, she would sing this song to let people know she was in the area. And it said that the tempo at which it was sung indicated whether it was safe to run that day or whether it was necessary to wait. So we sing this song today with that history, knowing and honoring both stories of oppression, bondage, and liberation when Israel was in Egypt land.
Israel was in Egypt.
Once again today, we have lit a candle of peace in honor of the people of Ukraine who are experiencing unimaginable levels of suffering. Our hearts and our convictions are with them. And yet, in spite of the terrible suffering, we hear stories of courage and even of joy. A couple gets married on the front lines, a child is born, a little girl stands up in a chair in an underground bunker and sings, "Let It Go." We are reminded that even in hell, heaven has a way of filtering through. And closer to home, there are so many struggles. Our hearts are with the families of all those members of our extended community who have died in the past few months. It seems there are so many. We also send our love and healing energy to Fenton Rude, who is recovering from severe wounds he sustained last week. And we pray also for Tempe and the rest of their family as they support him in his healing. On this Sunday before the anniversary of the Murrah building bombing, we also pause to remember the events of that day, both the horrors and the examples of great courage and community. So as Diane plays some music, I will invite you, we're gonna switch it up. Instead of coming to the front to light candles, we're gonna move to the back where there's more space. And I will ask you to go down the center aisle and then come back, especially if you're up in the front, come back the side. Folks up in the balcony can just come down the stairs and go directly to the station. So let us light candles for hope, for peace, for celebration, for sadness, for the joys and concerns that weigh upon our hearts. Ushers are ready with the candles. Once in about every 30 years, the holy days of Easter, Ramadan, and Passover overlap. And this is one of those times. And as with any rare event, like a great planetary conjunction or a visit from Halley's Comet, when it happens, it's worth pausing and giving some thought to what it all means. Ramadan is associated with revelation, the most sacred month for Muslims. Ramadan commemorates the event in 610 when the angel Gabriel, it is said, appeared before the prophet Muhammad and revealed to him the Quran, the Islamic holy book. Revelation is a critical part of the Muslim faith, and it is a core element of Ramadan. Islamic scholar Asma Asfaruddin writes that in the Quran, the word for revelation more broadly means to send a message through a gesture, through writing, through inspiration. And in this case, the messenger is specifically God, and the recipient is the human being. And according to other Islamic scholars, there are 3 ways that God's revelation to humanity occurs. Sometimes it's through a messenger, like Gabriel. Sometimes it's through a veil, meaning in dreams or in visions. And sometimes God just drops the whole truth with one big thump, as in the revelation of the Quran to Muhammad. So hold on to this idea of revelation for a moment. The Jewish holiday of Passover is associated with another R word, redemption. And as Steve was saying earlier, this isn't so much about the redemption of a sinful soul. This redemption has more to do with being liberated. It's about the Israelites being liberated from their bondage in Egypt, and about people today being liberated from those things that don't serve them, whether those be outdated ideas, negative thoughts, bad habits, or closed-minded prejudice. Redemption isn't something that a Savior does for us. Redemption, in the words of Rabbi Joshua Heschel, is an audacious, dangerous act that we undertake to save ourselves and to save us all. The R word related to the Christian holiday of Easter is resurrection. And the specific meaning of the crucifixion, the death of Jesus on the cross, is different in different Christian philosophies and traditions. But the core meaning of the resurrection is the same. Jesus died, and after 3 days, he rose from the dead. Now, whether this means that all or just some human beings will likewise live again after death, in body or in spirit, is a major point of contention between the different denominations. But what all Christians hold in common is a belief that because Jesus was resurrected from the dead, it means that death is not invincible. It's not the period at the end of the great cosmic sentence that is life. Now, of course, we know that the idea of resurrection is much more ancient than Christ. For thousands of years, pagans around the world celebrated the rebirth and renewal of the earth at springtime. The Christians and the pagans then share this idea that death is not the end, and that there is always hope for renewal and rebirth. Now imagine these concepts from these 3 major faiths written on a transparent piece of paper that's folded back upon itself. So they're all layered, and all the concepts merge into one. From Islam's holy Ramadan, the idea of revelation. From the Jewish holiday of Passover, the idea of active redemption. And from Christianity and from pagan traditions before that, the idea of resurrection and rebirth. And all these concepts come together in a story about a little stuffed rabbit that just wants to be real. And all these things come together in our stories too. In the stories of human beings, big and little, young and old, rich and poor, powerless and powerful, who all just want to be real. All of us. We just want to feel that our lives have value, that we can be known and loved for who we truly are. And at the moment of death, we hope to be able to say that we have truly lived. These three great traditions of Islam, Judaism, and Christianity offer a kind of roadmap toward realness. First, be open to revelation, which sometimes comes quietly in dreams, intuition, or that small nagging voice that just keeps asking, but what if? And sometimes comes like a tsunami, a crisis that knocks you down and that nearly crushes you, but that seen from a different perspective is really just the cleansing water of truth. Second, seek redemption by taking risks, by doing the right thing, and acting out of an audacity of faith. See that the situation is bleak, shout like the prophets about how corrupt the system is and how dire our future might be, and then act to change it. And third, hold fast to that belief that through redemption and revelation, resurrection and rebirth are possible. If we stay alert, really pay attention, and then act, even when a possible outcome seems unlikely or impossible, not because it's the smart thing to do, but because it's the right thing to do, we might see that nothing is ever truly lost, that life does persist and return, and that though we die, something of us lives on in the differences we have made for unknown people in an unknowable future. The story of the Velveteen Rabbit, not scripture, but a sacred text nonetheless, adds a critical missing piece to this roadmap toward realness. To this ancient wisdom, it explicitly brings the element of love. Through this story of a little toy rabbit, we learn that it is good to be loved, that by being loved, we may be seen for who we truly are. But it is by loving others that we become our true selves. It is by loving others that our true identity is revealed as beautiful, as holy, and as real. Susan and Steve, would you extinguish our chalice?
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of love and community, which burns in our hearts.
We will conclude our service today with a hymn sung by the entire congregation. And immediately after the hymn, we invite you to join us outside, so not going to Daniel Hall today, but going directly out to the courtyard for fellowship and conversation. And just as a reminder, you can get up to the upper level of the courtyard also by going through these doors and down the ramp out into the courtyard. There's an area for little ones for our egg hunt, and another one for our older kids. Although really older kids, we ask you to just really let the real kids do the eggs. Our middle and high school students have been busy out there during the service hiding all of the eggs. And as Steve mentioned, there will be matzah outside and lemonade. I don't know if that's kosher or what, but it works. And finally, I want to invite you all to return on the morning of April 19th at 8:30 for a vigil remembering the Murrah building bombing. We'll share some memories and a moment of silence and ring the chimes. On this blessed day and all days, may you be loved and may you love into realness. May you find revelation, redemption, and resurrection within the loving embrace of community. May your weary hearts rejoice in the promise that is spring. Please rise in body or in spirit for our hymn. It's number 270 in the gray hymnal, O Day of Light and Gladness.